I'd like to call the meeting, what's the date? April 4th to order. Looking, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 21st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. We'll go with the chairman's update. There's not much on the chairman's update. So we'll move on to the consulting engineer report. Mr. Durkin, do you have anything to report to the board?
No, not other than what's in the engineer's report.
Okay. Any members have any questions?
I didn't get a chance to read it, Larry, but was there anything in there that didn't pertain, other than what pertains to Berthold Extension and the 860? Is there anything else? No? Okay. Thank you.
Nancy, has there been any submissions, subdivisions, or site plans submitted to your office?
The address on Main Street.
180.
180. Thank you. Thank you.
180 Main Street.
Do we know when they'll be ready to move forward?
Not yet.
Mr. Riley, do you know when they'll be ready? Have you had any conversation with them on 180 Chase Bank?
Now they've submitted an application.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a timeline because we may not have a second meeting in April, so I didn't know if that's gonna come before that.
Mr. Riley, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think I'm good. I would say I have a copy of the 180 Main application, and it looks very complete. So it could be scheduled whenever pleasure of the board.
Yeah, who's that?
Chase Bank
What
in
is
the
supposed to-
Ford and Decor parking lot.
Weren't they supposed to come back for a PPC meeting?
What's that?
Were they coming back before
I think they did
the
at
town
DPRC.
department heads? I know we had one.
They did a DPRC meeting, and they have their responses in the application submission, so they've covered that
Okay.
now.
Mr. Chair, there was talk of it because the fire department, there was concern about the orientation, if they were gonna have to
Right.
shift 180 degrees. I talked to the applicant's engineer and they said they had communications with the fire department. And the fire department was okay with the orientation and the fire department was okay with they discussed fire lanes. So the applicant's engineer told me that the fire department was okay with the building orientation and they were okay with how they were proposing fire lanes. There was talk at the first DVC and the second to accept the orientation of the building first and the fire department's concerns for fire lanes.
And one of the things we brought that they.
Yeah, I would wait until the public hearing opens to
Okay.
start any discussion.
7:07, we have a few minutes before the, well, this actually continued, there's no date on that, no.
No time,
No
yeah.
time.
Mhm.
That wasn't boring, so. Next up is a continued public hearing for Berthold Street Extension. It's a definitive subdivision approval extension for R&J Tucci Construction.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Mark Chapdelaine, I'm an attorney, office at 20 Somerset Ave in Winthrop. I'm here with John Dick, our wetland scientist, and with the applicant, John Tucci. We're in a continuation, I believe it was March 21st, we were here last. We're seeking an extension of the subdivision plan for the Berthold Street extension.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions, or?
So, Mr. Chairman, there was a question relative to the bond, I believe. Is
They've submitted it.
It's been spent.
You have submitted the bond.
We've submitted the bond in a total of $191,930. That's been submitted to STED, and it's,
So maybe you can explain a couple of things to us.
sure.
I did some research on what has been put in already, and then my understanding is that none of that has passed inspection. The water line has not passed, and the sewer line was never inspected.
The sewer line was inspected. I believe it wasn't signed off on. There was one point of access, and Mr. Tucci can help explain that. There was a
According
point
to
of
the-
access.
According to the DPW mark, it was never inspected, just the water,
Okay,
and the water would not hold the pressure test,
Well,
and they did some,
Well, Tandy did the street.
John, would you come up to the,
I'm sorry. So we had a company come in from,
Sir, if you could just say.
oh,
your name.
sorry,
Yeah,
John
for the record.
Tucci.
Okay.
So we had a company come in to bring the water line to Essex Street, and they put the shut off on Essex Street, but they buried it. So we can't chlorinate the water line without digging Essex Street up. Not
so
just
correct me
off
if
the
I'm
curb.
wrong. That is not under the jurisdiction of the Saugus DPW.
No, so.
That
so-
is a state highway?
Yeah, so I have to apply for the state just to dig up two off the curb 2 feet just to get to the shut off. I have to bring it on the grass. So that's the reason why we couldn't finish our test, because the shut off was buried.
None of that has been corrected at this point.
No, because we wanted to get through this, and then we're gonna apply to the state to dig that up, to get the shut off on the curb.
So you need the extension to do any more work,
do that.
to rectify that.
To rectify that, yes.
and just for, as far as the bond goes, you'll note on it that the gas line is penciled in at 37,390, and we've worked with the town engineer, and the gas line won't be necessary, so if there is any work such as the sewer, the water that we would want to see the bond kind of cover everything on, there is $37,000 of bond within that 191,000 that essentially doesn't need to be there. So for the purposes of, if there is any issues with the water test or with the sewer when the DPW finally signs off on it, there is security in there for the town.
Which line was that, I'm sorry?
The gas line.
The gas,
Fine.
second to right above the total.
Oh, I was looking at the other one. On my sheet, the gas says a zero next
zeroed
to
out.
it. Yeah.
Oh.
The
Zeroed out,
36.7 is under
183 total.
electrical.
I might-
The 37
That.
wouldn't make the 183. if
Yeah,
you-
I must have an older
This is the
version.
bond. This was just submitted. I don't know if she,
John, this is a submission of your cost that you gave to Mr. Durkin?
So this is. $193. Yeah, this is it.
I have one for 183.
191.
Oh, that might be on the actual bond.
Yeah, that is on the bond.
That's on the
yes.
Bond
That's on the
paperwork, which
bond.
is, is that in this?
Yes.
Okay. You have this.
And when was this prepared? Is this from 2017?
Well,
Because your numbers seem a little bit low, so I'm just bringing that to you.
well, actually, Mark said the same thing to me. I showed him the
Yeah,
estimates I
we're
got.
looking at the breakdown
Oh, yeah.
on this. Yeah.
For example, Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry, it's right there.
the roadway binder and finish course, we have a estimate here from Aldo Landscaping and Paving for $25,875. So Mr. Tucci did go and,
That's a recent estimate?
yes, that's a,
This is from January 2024.
Thank you, sir.
and that wouldn't include the granite curbing and sidewalk. There's a separate line item for that.
with the engineer, keep that in mind. Larry? So he's carried 55, and he's got a price, recent price of 25.
This is, what's been bonded is different than what I was given to review.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I got two different, not
Yeah,
with
well,
those
that
numbers.
In my comments in the engineer's report, it let me know when it's appropriate. It's hard to evaluate a cost without unit costs. There's no unit costs. How can I check when there's a unknown quantity, and typically there's a unit cost? I mean, in this one case, we got there's an estimate. I mean, normally you'll look at a quantity and the unit cost, and it's hard to evaluate that. I mean, what was given to me to review and what's in the bond are night and day different.
The bond is actually more.
It's more.
The bond
bond
is
is
for a
actually
greater
more.
amount, so it's to
Yeah, but it's,
offer additional protection.
you know, what I was given to review is what's different in the bond.
You're right, I got a few more estimates, so that's why I increased my bond.
I mean, the risk for the planning board, if it's not an accurate estimate, if something goes wrong, then the town has to complete the project.
Well,
If it's underfunded, then that's a concern.
that's, the bond takes place, that's,
But you were okay with 183 for the bond? This actual bond is 191.
No, actually what I said in the engineer's report, I just gotta find it, is, I mean, I just looked at items line 5 and 6, and you know, my guess was there. First of all, I said it's difficult to evaluate without quantities and a unit price, and then based on engineer opinion, estimates for number 5 and 6 are about 10% low. Without the ability to check unit prices, in my estimate, total project could easily increase to 200,000. You know, I recommend that, you know, quantities and unit costs be provided and checked, or an engineering consultant could provide a more detailed analysis and cost at an expense to the applicant. You know, no more than $1,000 is my guess.
Mr. Durkin, when did you communicate this to the applicant?
I didn't,
Because we, at our last meeting, we had asked them to submit to you a proposed, you know, give you numbers, and you guys were gonna go back and forth with that. And they were gonna get the bond. If you didn't communicate that you thought that they should get higher, how would they get the bond before tonight? We required them to have the bond in place before tonight. I thought, my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, was that he was gonna communicate with the applicant to give him the correct number so they could get the bond. And how did everybody else understand?
I
So then,
can check my notes.
I'm just saying, if we told them they needed to have the bond tonight to get the extension, and they submitted something and we didn't counter that submission prior to them getting the bond, how would they know what number, how would they know? How could they bring the bond tonight?
My notes say continue for site visit in preparation for a bond for review, and reviewed by town engineer, so. I didn't think I thought we were gonna talk about the estimate before the bond came.
I was a little mixed up by it myself, because I thought they couldn't get a bond until we gave them approval. That's what you had originally said, Matt.
Mr. Chair, the bond amount of $191,930 is less than 5% of the stated amount of $200,000 that Mr. Durkin would feel more comfortable with. If the board wants us to get an amended bond in the amount of $200,000, I'm sure that won't be an issue. It's a small amount. If that resolves this problem. I mean, I think that the bond we have here is $8,000 more than what was originally presented. It seems like another $8,000 is being requested. 200, we can make that work. It's more important to get this first step taken care of so that we can go to the Conservation Commission and begin that process of finalizing this.
What I said in the report is the two items were, they seemed about 10% low to me. So if that was increased upon the board, the product could easily increase to 200,000. That's all I said. The biggest thing is without quantities and a unit price, how do you check an estimate? And what was given is night and day different than what was put in the bond.
Mr. Ryan?
Mr. Chair, through you to the board, so just speaking from experience, having done this many times, typically the process is, it's okay for the applicant to submit a bond estimate, then town engineers, engineering consultant for the board, any planning board, any town, reviews it according to the town's line item cost estimates. And the reason for that is if the town has to take the project over, it's going to be more expensive because town has to pay prevailing wages. So ultimately, the town engineer or the engineering consultant gives a recommendation to the board, this is the amount, and then the board votes that. And that's required usually before any extension, any sort of permission to proceed with a project. So I went back and found a cost estimate from the original application in 2015. And it has line items and costs and unit estimates. And you'd have to factor in inflation, right? So that, let's say 5% a year, the estimate back then for the whole thing was $269,000. Some work apparently has been done. So in this case, what would normally happen is the town engineer would go out and see what was done, subtract that from the bond estimate, and then come up with an estimate that the board reviews. It does not require that the applicant provide it. The board is the authority and the town engineer makes the recommendation. Again, it's okay for the applicant to provide information, but it's not their call. So in this particular case, I would say maybe that's a better approach to wait on that. And so the bond estimate is complete and according to the town's estimate. And then you can vote on that and know that it's protecting the town in the proper amount. That's typically what happens.
And Mr. Chair, I would be most comfortable with the planning board's peer consultant to look at that, to evaluate that cost estimate and evaluate the costs.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, we'll assign them to this.
Can we kind of recap a little bit here?
Sure.
We had that site visit,
Right.
and several of the close-by residents were there.
Mhm.
And the concern was to get that roadway, at least get the roadway in some sort of decent condition, so that the people could get their yards and everything back together. Now, we're talking about this bond and what it would cost to do that roadway in. And what, does that also include the cul-de-sac?
Yes.
So this 200,000 approximate, we're talking about the roadway in, all the curbing, completing the cul-de-sac, right?
Yes.
Okay. The thing is, number one, this is an expired subdivision.
Correct.
So I understand that town council has said that we would be able to vote to continue it,
Right.
which would be for 1 year. Now, can you tell me, if we do if we do extend it, and we get the bond issue squared away, what really needs to be done on that subdivision up there?
Well, from a housekeeping standpoint, we have the deed restriction, water quality cert issue. Whether we go forward with a deed restriction,
No,
which,
I mean, who do you have to deal with between now and a year's time?
if this is approved tonight, we expect to hear next week from the DEP with any proposed edits to the deed restriction. I've asked them to reconsider their position that a water quality cert is their preferred method. From a title standpoint, the deed restriction makes a lot more sense. Once that's approved by the DEP's attorney, I will send that over to the Board of Selectmen and ask them for endorsement. Once that occurs, we can then record it at the Registry of Deeds. That process will address the number one issue that the Conservation Commission had provided the board last time we were here, and that was the deed restriction issue. So once that's
Let me
done,
cut you short.
sure.
So bottom line tonight is, we really haven't settled the amount on the bond.
Well, yes and
Number
no.
one. Number two, should we extend it and we settle the amount that's requested on the bond? Can you get that project completed in 1 year's time?
Yes.
With all the other agencies that you have to deal with?
Yes, they've already been dealt with. We're in the final stages. That's why we're coming back now. When we were here 2 years ago, there was a list of conditions that we had to deal with. Existing conditions being one of them. We needed to move the DEP process much forward. Mr. Dick got involved and worked with the Conservation Commission to get this project in a place that we can now come back to you and say, we need to extend this subdivision. It's time. The neighborhood wants it. It's 3 houses. It makes sense. Just if I can just touch on the bond issue real briefly. You're not only holding a bond for $193,000, you're also holding the 3 lots. We can't come to you and ask for you to release a lot until all of these conditions are met, until the road is built. You're not going to give us a partially completed road and release any lots or the final lot. So this is a process that throughout it, we're going to be back here giving you updates throughout the year. So I see no reason that this process won't be completed within a year.
So, Mr. Chaplin, this is an old estimate that was submitted by the engineer for this, and obviously
June
prices
15th.
have gone up a little bit, and some of this work has been done. So the original bond estimate was for $289,000. Could you look at that at a glance and say what you could say has been done already that we could cross off?
Certainly, Matt.
Sure.
And then we have to factor in that there's some increase, but would there be an issue getting, adding to this bond?
There wouldn't be an issue adding to this bond.
Okay. And Larry, what do you need? You're saying you need volume and units, or what do you need to create your number? Or are you comfortable with this 220,000 if they increase it to 220?
First of all, what was presented and what's in the bond is different. Typically, you want to see a quantity or estimates. If you have a quantity, then you can check a unit price. I think what scares me is I think this is a perfect case where, the peer consultant, could be asked to provide a cost.
We don't have a peer consultant on this. We didn't vote to put one on.
We did.
No, because this is, typically we do that for bigger projects. This is homes, it's not like a complex. I mean, we've never done that. have we?
It's hard to come in, something that's been since 15. At a minimum, I'd want to see unit costs, either unit costs or hard estimates. I don't know if the surveyor, I think the surveyor did the costs, and the doesn't mean, it doesn't have to be an engineer to do the cost. But what's in the bond is, and what was provided me have the same date, but they're very different. So, first of all, I think the best they can do is give estimated quantities and prices. How do you, typically an engineer would evaluate a unit cost. Is this a real unit cost?
Well, that's what they did with the original. They did that originally. So
I don't
That's,
have the
that's in
original.
the June 15th, 2015.
It's better if
But
it's
there's
in
some
a
questions
format
that I
like
have,
that.
looking at that, Mark.
Yeah, looking at this at a glance, I mean, I'm seeing about $25,000 on drainage that's been completed. The water main is about $30,000 that's been completed. The sewer system's about
Wait, we have
$20,000.
to back up a little. I just explained to you that has not been done. As far as the town DPW is concerned, it's a field water main. It's been out there so long, you may be required to relay that.
I've discussed this with the DPW. The chair has, talking to the DP director, the information the chair got is that the water main may have not passed pressure tests. If the water main did not pass pressure test, then it may have to be dug up and relayed. That needs to be verified.
That's what I was trying to get to.
And I think when we were here last time, I mentioned any copies of any records, pressure testing, disinfectant. You know, if you have proof that it passed pressure tests, then provide them. I think what the chair has heard is that it didn't. And so it's hard, again, it's hard to hit a moving target if that's not known. I think in fairness to the applicant, we want to have a solid cost that can be looked at. I mean, if that's a good format. That's a format how I would evaluate a cost.
So has the water main been tested?
Yes, it failed.
It was tested and failed, or it failed just because you can't open that other end? You need to open the other end.
No, not necessarily, not according to the water foreman. You did a pressure check and it wouldn't reach pressure, there was too many leaks in the line.
No, there was one leak in the line, we fixed that leak, and then we went back out to do another pressure test, but we couldn't open the other end. So that's what happened.
I'm not getting that out of the DPW.
Well, I mean, at bottom, once this step happens,
Yep.
we can go to the state, we can ask that they open up, we can take the test. If it fails, then we'll cross that bridge and we'll relay the pipe if we have to. If it doesn't fail, then we check that off the list, and this board's gonna have notice every step of the way of what's happening here. So, we simply need to come up with the number.
This estimate has got no castings, it's missing a lot that's on that, no matter how you distribute it. If you're tying manholes to the drainage, yeah, it may be in, but you have no castings on the top of them, no finished casting.
Yes, we do.
So there's nothing in here that says castings.
No, the castings on it.
They're buried?
Those structures are all poking up out of the
Yeah.
ground.
Okay. Did you notice?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
through you, the board, this discussion, what Larry's describing is spot on. A lot of detail and specificity in the units and the unit costs is important, because in the unfortunate event we have to take the bond, town has to do the work. You have to be very specific as a board when you make that motion and vote to take money for a specific purpose. It isn't as simple as just sort of, well, we got a round figure here and that should cover it. So we do need that level of detail to make sure that it's going to hold up in the event of a bond taking.
So, Mr. Chair, could we grant the extension and put the conditions in there that they have to reach an agreement with the bond with the engineering, give the breakdown that they had to his satisfaction, as well as getting rid of the knotweed?
Let's work as soon as we can.
I mean, with a condition, we verify, John's had a conversation with the DPW director. I need to meet with the DPW director and the water foreman to verify that. And I think one of the things
Yeah, that's not information that the rest of us have. I don't know anything about it.
I don't either, and I found out about it.
So Mark, through you to your client, how much longer would it take you to give us a defined estimate? Rather than just,
Well, we need to talk to Larry, right, about that?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna, I thought.
I thought this all happened.
I thought we said that was gonna happen last time. I'm confused why it didn't
This-
happen.
this-
When
I
we
don't
were
see
here
any lighting in here, I
last
don't
time
see.
we said that
Yeah,
it was gonna happen,
The
so.
estimate is missing quite a bit.
Well, I thought last time Larry was saying it was up to us to come up with the estimate.
Yeah, he
Well,
said,
you would get
we left here, you were gonna
estimates
get an
to
estimate
present,
and bring it to
not
him.
specifically that you would make the estimate up.
No, I got estimates from,
You should have submitted them, it would have helped.
He submitted them to Larry.
I
Right?
didn't submit each estimate. I didn't know I had to submit each.
But you
Person's
created this
estimate.
document, this
Yes,
letter,
from
and you
estimates.
sent it to
Like
Larry
curbing, I got
on
curbing pricing, I got,
March 5th. So we're over 3 weeks, almost a month later. I guess my only concern is that if we needed more information and we needed him to do something differently than the document that he did, I feel like we should have communicated that to them.
I agree.
The meeting we had was on the 21st, so even though this was dated the 5th, I didn't have it the 5th.
Okay, so when did you get it? That's
I can check the email.
what I guess I'm trying to figure out.
My note said I was to review it, in preparation.
When did you, do you remember when you sent this to Mr. Durkee?
I can find it.
John, did
Mr.
you
Chair, if I may,
Yes.
send this out to them?
we can give them an estimate without any input from them, if that's, if they'd like to proceed with that.
That's fine, but again, there's a $191,000 bond that we currently are holding. In addition, there's 3 lots. We can't come to you and ask to release any of those lots. We're gonna have a house on them, and the town's gonna say, the planning board's gonna say, well,
This
the
isn't.
curbing's not here, we're not gonna release the lot. And you have all the power, you'll be holding all the cards. You have an infinite amount of security as a board because of those 3 lots. So once.
As you know, Mark, from past boards, we have one that's been out there for 22 years.
Yep, I know the spot.
So we're just trying to, we don't want that type of aggravation. We're trying to get everything that we can possibly get so you guys can move forward in an expeditious manner.
This will be a closed-out subdivision very quickly. The town's not going to need to go after the bond, but in the event it was, the 191 would certainly
take precautions.
cover it. I understand that, but I mean, the precautions are there, the safeguards are in place.
Mr. Rowley, what are you recommending for a number?
I've seen subdivisions go belly up when they didn't even come close to the first lot release. So you need to protect the town in full for any eventuality with the project. I would say if you look at the 2015 estimate, you factor in inflation and the fact that none of the stuff has really been inspected and approved, I'd say $300,000 is a conservative bond estimate for this project at this time. But I would agree with you, Ms. Meredith, that you could motion to grant the extension for a year, conditioned on that they have to provide a proper bond estimate to the town engineer or the engineering consultant that the planning board identifies, that gets reviewed and approved, and then executed. You know, the bond has to be executed as well. And I would also, as part of that condition, that the first thing we have to do is get rid of the knotweed, all the knotweed. And no construction whatsoever can take place on the project until those things are completed. But I can condense that motion, but that's what I'd recommend.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Does that sound fair?
Respectfully to Mr. Riley, however, I'm not sure that, in the board, I'm not sure that this board has jurisdiction over the knotweed. I think it's a conservation issue.
No, but you guys agreed that you would remove it. That's
He's
good
gonna,
faith.
as soon as we're permitted to go on the site, Mr. Tucci's committed to having his guys go, identify the few plants. We didn't see many plants when we were out there at the site walk. And to dig them up and get the roots out of the ground and do the best we can.
So last time around, I was under the understanding that you brought material in that caused a lot of this?
No, that's untrue. That was an allegation by Mr. Marr. That's an untrue statement. We do not.
Did you bring material into the site?
Any material that was brought in was clean
You have
material.
a fill permit for that material?
I believe so. I mean, we're going back to 2015, I think.
I'm just, the more information, John, that we have, the easier this is gonna be.
So long ago. I don't know. The paperwork.
Yeah, in the approved subdivision plans, you have drainage structures and invasive species control structures, and that's in what you approve. So you have all the jurisdiction necessary to require that they remove something that shouldn't be there and is not on the approved plans. So I would say you could proceed with that.
You should proceed. We just don't know the extent of, I mean, do they have to clear the hill of any knotweed that could exist? I mean, as a good neighbor, they'll certainly clear the knotweed that they can get to, but how far does it go? I mean, you have land there that goes all the way to aggregate. There's a significant amount of land.
I think we were talking about the land that directly abuts their homes, that's encroaching into their yards. So that area that is right behind their homes, if something's on the backside, I noticed some of it that's gonna be on the hill, that's gonna be behind the homes you're building. If it's in their backyard and they don't have a problem with it, I don't think it affects the neighbors. What we talked about was the knotweed that's directly behind those, when we were standing in the cul-de-sac looking out, those 3 or 4 homes right there, that it's all coming up on them and coming into their, encroaching onto their property. That's what we had talked about clearing.
They have no problem taking that out.
Okay, are we,
not admitting that they put it there.
because it's gonna be a
But-
condition, I don't wanna be fighting about this later,
No,
because then that's,
that,
we're talking about being good neighbors and
that
playing
spot
nice
they
in the
can certainly get
sandbox.
to and they can certainly remove.
Okay.
I mean, if the neighbors want to put pink, I think it's all concentrated in one
I don't think the neighbors wanna go out there and do
spot.
anything, they just want it to be cleared out. If they're
Yeah.
out there pulling them out, right now is a good time before it does start to take over, because it's just in the beginning stages right now, it's spring.
We agree,
It's only gonna multiply.
we agree.
Any other questions from the board?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
What's the wish of the board?
Are there any neighbors that'd like to speak?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is a public
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep.
Anyone in the audience would like to get up and speak?
Hi, board members. Sorry, missed you on the walk around. Thanks for coming out.
Just your name and address.
Bob Ma,
Thank you.
20 Fisk Ave.
Thank you.
He's gonna go tell you he's gotta do this, do that. He's gotta go to the Conservation Committee and everything else. He's using the conservation land for footage for his project. He's going over wetlands to get into his project.
That's been all approved by the state.
All right, but he's saying, I said, he brought Bill in that wasn't approved. He got cited for that. All right, I didn't say, all I know is the ragweed got worse since came out. I didn't say he brought it in, I didn't say anything. I don't need that stuff. It's a big conservation land, everything's gonna go through it. If they're so concerned, and he's so concerned, they're concerned what goes in there, who's in there, whatever. They're not concerned about what's coming out of there. Now, this is wetlands, and it's going to take 5 to 10 years to eradicate that stuff. Just knocking it down, it's going to come right back up. He's an expert, he knows, and you can't mow it. Then it spreads it. You got to cut the stalks down, put a chemical in the root, everything else. It's going to be time consuming. I spent enough time keeping it off my property. All right? These guys aren't getting their ducks in order, isn't my fault. But ragweed don't stop. I want to live in my house. I don't want to have to fight with Mr. Tucci and his lawyer. Been doing that since 2015 or 2011. Just, if they can all I want them to do is maintain the wetlands by my house in perpetuity, or whoever they sell the lot to, because whoever that lot's going to get sold to, that wetlands goes with the property. Now they're stuck with it. Now if they can just do a maintenance, maintain it, you'll never see me again down here.
I think the attorney that just said they would maintain it.
Yeah, what?
It'll be one of the conditions.
Yeah, well,
Release
it.
is that going to be
Clear
a
the rock-
perpetuity?
They're not gonna get, my understanding is they're not gonna maintain the wetlands forever, which is
Well,
perpetuity. But
whoever
they're gonna
whoever they sell
They're gonna go
that-
out right now and they're gonna
Right.
have some guys
I
come down
understand.
and pull the existing knotweed that's there
I understand.
now.
But
Correct?
knotweed,
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair. and Ms.
Mr. Riley?
Most effective way to control invasive species is to put native species in a proper grading and drainage and landscape plan. And that is part of the approved definitive subdivision. So the sooner that they can do that and get that in, the sooner and most effectively the knotweed will be controlled. That's how you deal with that over the long term. And there's an operations and maintenance manual that was also approved with the original definitive subdivision. So that's all there to control this over the long term.
but this is going to be lot 4. This is the lot 4 that they're not building on. They're using it for drainage and whatever else they're going to do. It's not a house lot, but it's part of the property. So they can sell their house lots. That problem's still going to be there if it's not eradicated to the next people and the next people.
That's conservation, right? That lot's conservation, it's
It
all
will
water,
remain
right?
conservation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to get up and speak?
Yes, Mary Barolo, 39 Wilbur Ave. My only thing, and the lawyer mentioned tonight, it was like for 3 houses. When we were out there walking around, when you all came out, which we appreciated, He kept on talking about something like being up on the hill, and it was how that land was going to be handled in the future, and the house might, be brought up. From the very beginning, it was supposed to be 3 houses, and that was televised, it was recorded, it was agreed to, and nobody wants to see it go to 4th house.
Well, that's all the subdivision is.
So they
is
can't
before
change
us.
that.
They have to
3.
come back and
Okay,
do whatever they have to do. They
All
can't
right.
put a 4th house on it.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to get up and speak in favor or against? Hearing none?
Motion approved.
No.
Mr. Durkee?
Brian, I think,
Quick question?
Let me just take this
Oh,
one.
go ahead.
I think trying to, the implications on the bond is if it's not accurate and the town has to take it over, it could be a big expense of the town. Mr. O'Reilly said based on the 2015, if you extrapolate inflation, he thinks $300,000 is conservative. I mean, this PJF Associates is a licensed land surveyor, not a licensed engineer. And so what was done previously was done, let me finish, it was by EAI Incorporated, a licensed engineer. So it puts me in a comfortable situation unless I have a lot of data. There's still some unknowns with the DEP. I'm willing to work with them, but I would be most comfortable if there was another engineer, licensed engineer, who looked at the cost, and then I would review it with them. There's a lot of implications to getting the estimated cost to finish the subdivision as accurate as possible. The town assumes a lot of risk if it's not done properly.
Mr. Long?
This is really a 3-lot subdivision.
That's
As
correct.
far as building is concerned. And on the other lot 4, is there a restriction on that, a deed restriction that would never be built upon?
I haven't seen the deed, I haven't seen anything. It's so old, I don't know even if it exists within Nancy's office.
It's
That could not be
landlocked,
built.
right?
Yeah, it
It's
could not be
is it
built on.
landlocked?
It's clearly wetlands. It's a drainage for the subdivision.
No,
No.
the top lot. The other
It's
lot-
completely landlocked.
It's landlocked.
It's on that back hill of Essex Street as you come around the bend.
Are you talking about lot 1 or lot 4?
Neither.
It's not even listed here.
It's not even listed. Mr. Tucci doesn't have any ownership. It's just, that's the only land that's remaining there as far as we understand. That's all that was being pointed out. I think it was misunderstood. This is a 3-house subdivision. The 4th lot is not buildable. It
Is
is.
there a paper road between the houses to the 4th lot?
There is not. There is, Ellen Court is that lot would be on, but you would need to get to that through an easement from the subdivision. But again, that's a new filing that would come before this board. It's nothing remotely close to that's in the works. It was just talking about the general land that we were saying what was there and not there. As for the bond amount, if 300,000 is what the engineer and Mr. Riley would feel more comfortable with, then, make that a condition and we'll get you a bond for 300,000.
They're talking about a lot that's way up here. That's not on this plan. It's.
Board
way
members?
off. It's behind here.
Yeah.
This is lot
Mr.
4.
Chairman.
This is all what.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr.
Conservation.
Riley. I don't believe he said 300,000 was the number. That was just a conservative estimate. I think the condition was that they would get the bond up to whatever the cost had to be. So-
It could be more than 300.
Right, so that's like, I don't think he said
So
it would
that's-
make it 300,000.
We could, yeah, thank
Right,
you.
yes.
And if I may respond,
Sure.
the chair to you. As I said, you can have an upset limit, but we still need specific detail in the event that for some lack of performance, we need to take a portion of the bond for the town to do the work. That's the issue. That's why you need a detailed bond either way.
Board members?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I'm hearing 2 different things. So are you saying that the only estimate you'll accept from them is if it's a certified engineer? Because
No,
I thought you said it didn't have to be an engineer.
I mean, it's almost best if it's a certified engineer, a registered engineer, because I think what would make me most comfortable is if we had an outside, like a peer consultant, look at the costs and who's working with developments all the time, who's familiar with the cost, the unit cost. Everything's got to be put in a unit cost basis.
So, Mr. Rowley, can I just tap into your experience for a minute?
Yeah.
Since this is the first time we've actually come across this issue with the bond, how typically does that work with the bond? Do you require, does an engineer bring it forward, or how do they arrive at that number?
Usually the town engineer takes the approved plans and looks through the construction detail and then generates a cost estimate. He
Okay.
can look at everything, the
Okay.
design standards and everything that's included in the approved plans, and by category, come up with units and costs, line item costs for each one, and then tally the whole thing, and you get one big large number, and then the applicant takes that, they go to their bank or wherever they can, secure it.
Okay.
And then you get the bond to be it needs to be executed, so, it needs to be signed by the board. This is what a tripart agreement is, or, the bank agrees, we'll pay if we need to, the applicant agrees to pay, the board signs.
Okay. So that's typically done from our engineer going through the plans, the approved plans?
Almost always,
Okay.
it's,
All right, so in lieu of time, and I know your time is you're tight with your time, so you're not gonna have time to go through those plans, and this is an old Tim. Would we be okay with saying that we would be okay with the number of 300,000 a bond, and would you guys be okay with that? And then put this to bed, get this extension, and get moving on this project?
We would be okay with it.
Because if we have to wait for you to go through, and it's not really fair if that's typically the process for us to ask them to incur another cost of going back and getting an engineer and doing this itemized thing, would the board be safe with that, comfortable with that?
in case you aren't.
Mark, who's got that estimate that?
I believe Mr. Durkin has.
I have
Nope,
provided
I'm
the
sorry.
2015 estimate.
I have it here.
It'd be good
Would
if.
you like it, Mr. Chair?
If I could just take a peek at that for a second, please.
It would be good if the applicant updated it in that format. I mean, it's easier to review something that's done already.
Thank you. So I totally agree with this and I understand it. I'm just worried about the time that it's gonna take. I don't wanna see us back here in another
Yeah,
month and
yeah,
then he
that's
didn't
a
have time to go through the
In
subdivision
everyone's
plan.
interest for the
And then-
project to proceed,
yeah.
but,
I mean, I think it's in the best interest of the town and the neighborhood to get this neighborhood developed. Get it online.
yeah, they can get out there and start removing the knotweed right away, right? And then in the meantime, the bond gets generated and executed. That usually happens fairly quickly.
And they still have some other hoops to jump through for conservation, so
The deed restriction, and
Mhm.
so, all this is doable within before our next meeting, which is May.
Mhm.
You're giving them the extension tonight, conditioned on no construction
No, 'cause
shall
John's not
occur
gonna be
until they take care of these things. Everybody kind of wins, I think, but
here. Mhm.
it's pleasure of the board.
I don't have any problem with that. Does the board have any other?
So what's the wish of the board?
Make a
Motion?
motion to close the pub, did anybody else want to speak? No? I make a motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve a one-year extension, subject to complete bond that's submitted, well, no, we're not gonna do that, to increase the bond to 300,000. And in the invasive species shall be removed, which is the knotweed where it exists in the subdivision project area, and that lot 4 specifically that abuts those homes, before any construction or activity may proceed on the subdivision. Covered?
I would just add with proper project detail in a $300,000 bond.
So moved.
I'd like to amend that a little bit, that nothing will happen up there unless the bond is presented to the board. The extension does not go into effect unless the bond is approved, received and approved by the board prior to,
They would submit the bond to Nancy in that amount before any work can proceed, but we don't necessarily have to meet again to re-vote it,
we have
correct?
to vote the bond.
We're voting it right now, it's in the motion.
If
that
you
we're-
see it.
To increase the amount to
We're
300,000.
telling them to do it, but we don't have it.
They can't start any work until they give the bond to
No,
Nancy.
but they have 2 weeks to get the bond in. No, we're not meeting 2 weeks.
We're not meeting for another month,
God.
but they would bring the bond like they did to Nancy.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair. to the
Mr.
board.
Riley?
You're not just throwing out a arbitrary number. We've talked about the estimates that have been generated, and we're coming up with a conservative estimate based on those. So those are part of the record and would be the basis for that amount, which I think is sufficient. That's what I'd recommend.
So just so everyone understands, I believe this was generated by Engineering Alliance for
Are you-
289,000.
We're in the middle of a motion. We're
Yeah, I
just
get
ended
it, but I'm just trying to
discussion.
explain the
All right.
300,000.
All
And
right.
some of the work is done,
Okay.
so.
Can you read the
I
motion
don't think
again?
that the 300,000 is too off of what they need. I'm trying to-
Right, you're right,
answer
there's
Bob's
about
questions.
50,000 of
Yeah.
it's already been done.
So-
Yeah. Read my motion again?
Again, please.
Okay, I make a motion to move to approve the 1-year extension based on the conditions that we receive a $300,000 bond, and the invasive species shall be removed, which is the knotweed, where it exists on the subdivision project area and in that lot 4 that abuts the properties, before any construction activity may proceed on the subdivision.
Go
And
back to,
The bond shall
And the
have
ball
proper unit and cost.
read it
detail.
again.
Bond shall
Please.
have proper unit and cost estimates. Correct?
Quantity and unit cost.
For the love of God, does somebody else want to make this motion?
That's,
You're
you
doing a good
got
job.
it, you got it. So
You make the motion.
No, you're doing a good job.
You guys are,
you just covered it all, so it's there.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll say.
Discussion on the motion? Yes.
We're in
Mr.
the-
Chair,
Sir,
discussion on the motion? Would you read the motion again?
No, I will not. No, I will not.
May I read it?
You may, yes.
Thank you. There's only one condition I wanted to put,
You want to make an amendment?
No. Complete, the bond is submitted to the town engineer for review and recommendations for planning. What the hell is the motion?
I changed that, and I said something different.
You said something different, right? And you said what?
3 times. 3 times I said
Repeat it again so you got it memorized.
I don't. Why are you sitting next to me? Next week we're changing seats.
The
Okay.
applicant shall submit a bond for $300,000.
Yes.
Is what you moved.
The applicant will submit a bond for 300,000 with bond and unit cost
Okay.
and whatever he
And
just
no
said,
mention-
estimate added to it.
Work may commence only upon receipt of the bond.
Okay.
That's what,
You want to add that? Okay.
That's what that says at the bottom there.
And then the invasive species shall be removed, the knotweed, on, where it exists on the subdivision project area, including lot 4, the property that abuts the neighbors.
Mr. Chairman, would you have the secretary read the motion?
I think the only thing that she's leaving out is the bottom line that's before us. Can I see this, please?
Before any construction activity?
Before any construction activities may proceed on this subdivision.
I don't
Yep.
think I left it out.
Yeah.
So
Said it
that's
4
all I think he was
times.
looking for.
That's all I'm looking
But I
for.
got it the first time, so just so he understood. So there'll be no work started until the bond is actually in place. Okay? So we're in a motion.
So
With
would
that-
somebody second that?
Second.
No, it's
Okay,
just
second.
one discussion.
All in
Would
favor?
that- just a discussion on the motion, would that exclude the removal of the knotweed? Because I
That's
think
it.
we need to move that
Yeah,
right away.
yeah, I
That's in,
said
that's in the
that.
motion. That's in the
said that.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We need a roll call? Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes.
I say yes, so the motion passes 5-0. Chris, you will give the order of conditions?
Yes,
Would you write the order of
the
conditions?
decision, yeah, I'll take it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, I wanted to be on the television, on the TV board.
Ed Sullivan.
You're gonna be on the television, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night now, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have an informal discussion for site plan for permit 860 Broadway, site plan update. I will turn this meeting over to Ms. Meredith, and I am removing myself from the meeting. Ms. Meredith?
Take Bob with you. Just kidding. Okay. Hi. Would you like to come to the podium to give us an update?
And you want an update with regard to construction continues to proceed?
You can name us.
Who your name and record and that
Yeah,
stuff?
name and address for record, please.
It's on construction. Yeah, you're starting.
Andrew Schaefer, Granville Saugus LLC. We're the developer on the project. Construction update, building 1 is pretty much complete. They're in finishes right now and punch. The second building, which is actually building number 3, is framed and topped out. They're drying in, doing framing punch in that as well. And they're commencing work on the last building, which is actually building number 2, the building footprint foundation, hauling dirt for that footprint. Civil work is just about complete. I know we've had a lot of discussions with Mr. Durkin. Water lines run. They're getting ready to start running roads and parking areas as soon as the weather breaks. We'll start bringing in, road base and stuff like that and working on the entrance road. We got our first transformer placed in the last couple of weeks, so the first building's getting energized right now, and that's about where we're at right now. Turn it over to Paul.
No,
Okay. Is there any questions?
there are questions, just a minute. So it's come to our attention, a couple of different things, that they're looking to, get occupancy permit for the first building?
At some point, yeah.
So have there been any changes to that building?
Have there been any changes, significant changes to the
Yeah.
building? No,
Well, any changes, because significant is usually the discretion of the board, whether they're major or minor.
not from what the plans that were submitted for construction, for permit.
Let me just make sure that we, Paul Feldman, I represent the developer. I just want to make sure I understand your question. The footprint of the building, the structure is exactly as it's shown on the approved site plan. There are 3 buildings. The total project is 245 units. I know that when it was originally presented to the planning board, those units were allocated between the 3 buildings slightly differently than the way the construction drawings and building permits are proceeding based on. Is that what you were asking about?
Yeah, so if the original plan had X amount of units in it, and now there are additional units in that, how did the footprint change?
First of all, the number of units for the total project is not changing. It's exactly 245 units. When the plans were originally approved by the planning board, I was the counsel, the lawyer for the prior owner. The interior design was not designed. It's a schematic. It was an estimate. We're going to do 245 units in these three buildings. This is the size of the buildings. And then you go to construction drawings and you actually design the units within the footprint of the building. So in the first building, the schematic that was done by the prior owner said whatever the number of units was. I'll give you an example. I actually wrote them down.
88 was the first.
Well, I have it here. So just give me a second.
For building one, it's 75, correct? That's what the plan was approved.
The original, in the original set
I
of
believe
plans.
it's 75.
Yeah, I'll give
I
you.
can look that up.
So in building number one, what was proposed was 75. Ms. Riley is correct. What's actually on the construction level drawings is 78. There are 3 more units, not because the building footprint changed, but because the way the architect who actually designed the units, because the architect doesn't have the units designed at the time of site plan review, but once you sit down and you actually design and you can figure out configure the units, given the unit mix and the like, put 78 units in the first building, even though the schematic thought we were only going to do 75. The building footprint doesn't change, but when the architect actually designed the units, he put 78 in the first building. In the second building, which is the second building being built, which is the third building, 85 units were proposed, and the construction drawings show 88 units. 3 more, again, same thing. The building footprint
So
doesn't
did the
change.
size of the units change?
Yeah, the size of the units change, the interior, because the schematic doesn't design the units. I think you appreciate that. The architect hasn't designed out the units. And then in the last building, they were originally contemplating 85, but they're only putting in 79 because they only can have 245 units.
Right.
And so, what happens is that, maybe the units got a little bigger or a little bit smaller, but the total number of units in the project are not changing, and the allocation among the buildings are within just a few, out of 85 units. You're talking about up 3, down 3, up 6, 7 or 8%.
But the building's footprint stayed the same.
The building footprint is exactly,
Okay, so,
because you have an as-built, you already have as-built for the foundations that show, and I think, Rick, you've already provided
have you
a
submitted
plan
those
that
to,
shows-
the as-bills to the planning board? Because before you can get an occupancy permit, the as-bills have to be provided.
Yeah, they're talking about the as-built foundation.
For the foundation.
Not the as-built site plan. So,
Okay.
yeah. So there's been no as-bills done because the roads aren't in yet, the curbs aren't in yet. There's really not much to as-built.
Okay, so-
But when the as-built foundation plans were submitted to the building department, the building commissioner required us to show an overlay of the as-built drawing right on the site plan to prove that it was the same exact footprint. And they
Okay.
identified.
Same footprint,
Okay.
same size, same location. So when you were asking me about the size, I was talking about the as-built of the footprint, and then the building goes up on the footprint. You
Yeah,
get it.
yeah, And the installation of landscape buffer for the town review is required along the lot line. Do you know when that's gonna be scheduled to do?
Yeah, we're probably going to be back to the planning board, probably for your next meeting. If you're not having another meeting in April, in May.
Yeah, the first.
There's
week
an
of May.
easement, there's an easement that runs along the back of the property. And just this week, there's been a completion of relocating that easement among the property owners. And so now that that easement, the location of that easement has been agreed upon, and we know where it is, we're gonna now come back with the fencing and landscaping plan to show you how it works with the easement in the new location. So that's gonna be
And
a
on May
submission,
2nd?
that's a submission that the applicant's gonna make to the planning board.
Okay.
We're gonna come back and show you that.
And you think should be in the May 2nd meeting?
It probably will be.
Yeah.
All we have to do is, yeah, it'll be, and if you want, when do you usually submit? A week, 2 in advance?
Yeah, so we can submit it, yeah, within the next week or two.
So if, we'll get it 2 weeks before your May meeting, and if you have room on your agenda, we'll plan to come.
Okay.
And that will be to present the fence and the landscaping, because now we know where the easement is. We're gonna be able to design that correctly.
Okay. And then the site's supposed to be secured 24/7, and the town's been informed that it's not. Do you have anything to
Oh, I
respond
think-
about that?
We're a little confused on that. We do lock the site every day. It's also, the perimeter is covered by a company called Fedora. It's cameras. It's required by our builder's risk. The entire site's fenced in. And like I said, the workers, the last of the management team leaves the office trailer at about 6 o'clock every night, and they close and lock the gate, the front gate. So that was a little surprising to us, but if there's ever any issue, I mean, we get calls from Fedora if the perimeter is breached. That's on from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So, does everybody understand what that is? There are video cameras that have surveillance of the site. And it's pretty remarkable because Andrew has sent me by email surveillance of the site where we could see, oh, it's 6:30 in this morning. The construction worker just pulled in.
We employ 2 different companies. We have a company called Multivista that does like the progress, the documentation photos, aerials. We have a couple webcams up right now, and then Fedora is a security that's monitored between those hours, between 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. and 6 a.m.
So is that a company where somebody's physically watching?
Yeah, there's somebody there that monitors their system. So like if the perimeter's breached at all, like each camera points at each other, and if they catch a breach, like it'll send an alarm off, and our contractor will get a call.
So there's 24/7 security.
Okay. Okay.
Have you, if I may,
Yeah.
have you had people in there trying to steal?
No, we haven't had any overnights that I'm aware of. They get pinged all the time, like at 6:30 when guys are still leaving the site, like when the management team's leaving the site, we get those all the time. We have not heard anything overnight. If there's anything that ever comes up, I go to bed late. You guys can all have my number. I go to bed late, I get up early. If there's any problem, if you see cars out there, we'll address it.
Okay.
Yes,
Mr. Wong?
Yeah, I do have some questions. This is all new to me.
Yes, sir.
Okay? I wasn't on the board when this got approved.
Yes, sir.
I take no responsibility for what the hell you're doing up there. But anyway, no, what are your hours of operation up there? You're close to a neighborhood. What are the hours? I drove down the end of Longwood Avenue. I saw that second building. It's really close to the neighborhood. What are
Yeah.
your hours of operation?
I believe it's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the order of conditions. That's what
Yeah,
we
and-
adhere to.
6 days a week?
I think it's a little bit different on Saturdays. No work on Sunday or
Yeah,
holidays.
it's in the approval.
8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays.
What are the hours?
8 a.m. to 5.
8 a.m. to 5. That's
That's on Saturday,
Saturday.
correct?
Yeah,
I think it's 7 to 6.
How about during the week? 7 a.m.?
Paul's pulling it up right now, but
I'll pull it up.
I can tell you the trades workers are out of there usually by like 4:30 every day.
They don't hang around long.
No, our management team, our contractor, like the management team's usually there till about 6.
So in the morning, on a weekday morning, it'd be 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we don't let them, and we try to keep them away. I've yelled at them several times. They can't have trucks idling on that back property line. We don't want them back there. We don't want light shining through. That came through once to us. There was a complaint about that.
We got complaints
We
about
try
that.
we try to
Trucks are
police
there
that.
very early, like 5:30.
It's in the master. It's in
That's
the-
okay. I think I have what the answer. you're starting at 8 on Saturday, 7 on the weekdays.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're ended at 5 o'clock on the weekdays. Saturdays, you're lucky if you get a crew in there and they stay. Some
Yeah,
good weather.
for the most part, there's usually somebody there.
But anyway, the fire department, I know, has reviewed this.
Mhm.
Those buildings, particularly the second one that you have going up right now, it's really close to a difficult place to reach. Do you have anything accessibility to the back of the buildings?
Yeah, there's a parking lot behind that building with a fire hydrant. And that's all, there's actually a standpipe on the backside of that building as well.
Building 2.
Oh, building 2?
Pardon?
There's a 10-foot buffer on building 2. That's actually secured access. So on each side, they have access from the corners. So the entrance drive is on the west, and then they have parking access from the east.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the wood frame buildings that you're putting up. Just to let you know that.
Yeah,
You didn't care whether you knew it or not.
that's understandable.
So the footprint of the buildings are all still the same
Yes,
as they
sir.
were initially approved?
Yes, sir.
It's just changed the allocation within the buildings
Yes, sir.
of some of the
Yeah, the
units?
footprints are exactly the same size in exactly the spot
Yeah,
shown on the plans.
that's what you
Both
said. Yeah.
size and location.
Okay. The lines and everything, are they underground?
The
You know, your telephone?
lines for the development?
Yeah,
Yeah, everything's underground once you get up to the west side, like where the entrance drive is. So coming off of Broadway, we have about a 300-foot entrance drive that's shared. It's part of an easement with the commercial property next to us. And once you hit the west side of the property corner, that's where it dives underground and hits
so
transformers.
coming up from Route 1,
Yes, sir.
they are above or they're not above? the
They
ground?
are above.
They're above,
Existing, yes.
And then they go under
Correct.
when you enter the property?
Correct.
All right. Oh, walls. Now, like I say, I'm gonna propose that we have a site visit. I
Absolutely.
understand you folks are looking for an occupancy permit. Is that true?
Sometime in the next few months, yes.
I'd like to have, you know, if the board agrees, I'd like to go up there and familiarize ourselves with that project.
Absolutely.
And
Do you want to schedule that tonight? Because we did have that scheduled and
we
then,
did, yes. It was canceled, it was gonna be at 12 o'clock on that Friday.
yes.
It was a damn cold morning.
You asked us to cancel it. We tried to reach you, but we couldn't reach you.
Yes,
That's,
I
yeah, it was
tried
at
to
the last
thank you.
minute. I actually came down to your office. and,
I was out at the
I
site,
put an all
but thanks for
caller on
trying.
you.
Anyway,
yeah.
And as you know, I mean,
So-
it's a construction site. We have PPE. There's hard hats, gloves, glasses. They'll have high visibility vests. We just ask that you make sure you have the appropriate
Do
footwear.
you have wall construction there? Do you have walls?
Retaining walls
Yeah.
in certain
retaining-
spots.
Yeah.
There are not many,
Are
but
they the ones on the plan?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Are they changed?
No.
no. Exactly as shown on the plans.
There's 2 retaining walls on the south side of building 1, and then there's,
How high is your highest wall?
I think the top of the wall is about 7 feet.
Structurally,
They're all structurally
You're-
designed, yeah.
you're attesting that they're structurally,
They were designed by the structural engineer for the project. They're all poured concrete walls.
I was doing the planning board years ago and we had a wall blowout, so
Oh,
I'm very careful about that. Now, the neighbors, are you by accident or however getting any of that fill pushed into that wetlands that you have behind building 1?
behind building 1, we should not. I mean, we
There's a
try,
pond back there.
yeah,
The wetland.
it's wetlands. And there's a buffer there,
They
and then we
call it
have,
wetland. I saw an actual pond.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's any smaller than with all the rain and everything that we've had recently.
Well, I have a quick question to jump in, to piggyback on that. At the very beginning, there were some big boulders that were pushed over the edge of that went down into that water, and they were gonna be removed. And before they put the fence up, do you know if those boulders were removed?
I don't know if that's
Yes.
accurate.
Essentially, are you talking about the boulders that they stacked vertical instead of at a 1-to-1 slope that they removed? Because that has been completely changed and constructed to a 1-to-1 slope like it was supposed to be.
No, I'm talking about the corner, like say if you came all the way to the end of Longwood Ave, that corner right there of the lot, there's wetlands right there. I don't know if that's the same wetlands you're talking
Yeah.
about,
Oh.
but there were some big rocks that were at the top, I mean, like boulders, that had gotten knocked down to the wetlands. And they said at the time, they knew it had happened, and they said that they would remove it.
The
I haven't been
contractor?
back up there to see if it was removed, but do you know if it was removed?
This is all news to me. Who was discussed? The contractor?
It was discussed, yeah, Doug Zorn, I believe, was here at that time.
That happened in a planning board meeting?
Yeah, we talked about it.
I have to go back and look at it. I don't know. I mean, there's boulders all over that slope from when Golf Country was built. I'm not aware if there's any specific boulders, yeah, we could.
I can drive back up there and look too. Or we can look at the site visit when we want to do we want to schedule the site visit now so we can get.
With the board members, what would be a good time?
I would say probably a Saturday morning. So last time Phil took the day off, and
It's fine.
Saturday work.
Rich?
We'll come to do it after.
Yeah, Saturday.
Saturday morning.
It'll work, yeah.
Well, you can do it after work too. After work might be easier, it's light out late, because
Oh,
none of
is
the
it-
workers are there.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean? If you did it like at 5 o'clock
Okay.
or 6 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, Phil, you get out at 5.
Yep, that's
Yeah, I get out at 5.
So we just have to have the contractor there and coordinate it with him? It's just
So
the
what's
builder.
what's better for you, or a Saturday morning, or?
I can coordinate a Saturday morning with them, or?
But if they're working on Saturday, is Rick's point, at 5 o'clock at night, there's no work.
Oh, I see
Yeah,
what you're saying.
we're not gonna
Yeah,
interfere with that.
You're not gonna interfere with construction
Because they're
activity.
working on Saturday, yeah.
Yeah,
I see
so
what you're saying.
the whole
Okay.
idea is you can
So
walk
like
around and go wherever you
5:30?
want.
5:30 on a, because it's late out
I'm
now until
retired, I don't
7:30.
give a-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can coordinate that.
Okay, what day works for everybody?
Throw the date down. Look, okay.
Next Tuesday?
The 9th?
You wanna check the weather forecast?
I know there's an eclipse on Monday.
That changes by the minute, right?
Well, I think Tuesday's actually supposed to be a little
The
warmer.
eclipse is the 8th,
Or is
right?
it?
It's supposed to be a nice day on Tuesday.
Yeah,
If
we
we
don't.
push it back a little too, it'll dry up. You won't be walking through the mud too, which might be a little.
Okay, so.
Supposed to be
I'm happy
60.
to walk through the mud, but what do you
Yeah,
want?
yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it's gonna be 60 and sunny on Tuesday.
I like that.
60, yeah, 60.
Tuesday?
Tuesday, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock? What time?
5:30. 5:30?
5:30?
Or 5:15, I could be there at 5:15.
You said
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yep, does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
5:30?
5:30 on Tuesday, April
April
9th. Chris, can you make that?
Yeah,
Or you already saw the site, you don't need to go again, or do you want to go?
no, I didn't walk the site with them, so I'll be there.
Okay,
Please, thanks.
I have a conflict on Tuesday, so I can't make it.
okay.
I-
You've been going and
I've
walking the
been going to
site
the site,
periodically
and-
anyway, though.
And I think, if I may, Vice Chair, is in the engineer's report, I have been working with Andrew and the contractors, and I think one of the things, Andrew, I probably want to do is just, maybe next Friday, schedule another visit.
For you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I think, just see what records they provided me with a lot of the inspection records. What I'm trying to do is be ready for when they're ready for an as-built, so I
Okay.
have everything.
Yep.
And so it's relatively straightforward.
Good idea. Okay, so,
I have a question about the plans.
yeah,
So, it's my understanding that the plans were approved for a
Mhm.
certain amount of units, correct?
mm-hmm,
And although the footprint hasn't changed, if the units change, then it requires like a re-review, right? Like a red line
a red line drawing.
submission, is that, would that be
Mr.
accurate?
Riley?
And
Well, is it a de minimis change, the planning? I think you should probably, for the record, motion that it's an insignificant change if you believe it is, as described. But, someone says, well, the planning board approved this, and the unit count was on the buildings, and then there is 30% more units, but it's the same footprint. I would not say that's immaterial. So, unit counts affect parking and other aspects of the site plan. And in this case, there was a site plan that was approved and a master plan with unit counts for individual buildings that usually we expect to be carried forward to the construction docs. But saying that, this sounds like a de minimis change. I don't, if they're
Yeah, so
telling us
I would just say two things.
nothing's changed anywhere else in the parking or the site or,
Right.
the master plan.
Right, I mean, there are two things I would say. One is the master special permit, it says the maximum number of units for this development, 245. And yes, when it was presented by the prior owner, again, with not architectural level unit drawings, but just an estimate of what they would expect each building to yield, they put on, we expect building number 1 to yield 79, building number 2 to yield 85, whatever the numbers were. Even the site plan permit acknowledges that when you get to construction level drawings and you actually design the units, they have to be in substantial conformance. And I think we're agreeing here that if you have a building that originally thought was going to have 75 units and it has 78, that's substantial conformance. If you had a building...
Yeah, that's the planning board's determination. And I would say that you might have abutters, for whatever reason, might say, wait a minute, that's not what we heard when this was originally approved. So it's not...
The number of units hasn't changed.
It's not an insignificant thing.
The 200...
Let's just discuss it, because it's not an insignificant.
Okay, but so let's make sure we understand. The unit count for this project has not changed by 1 unit. It's 245 unit project. Traffic, parking, site design, everything has been based on 245 units. What we're talking about now is building number 1, before any units were designed, when we were at a schematic level, which everybody understood, it's contemplated in the plan, in the decision, would be at construction level drawings, was proposed to have 75 units, it has 78. And we went through the other 2. The construction
I can't tell you how many times, as a planning director, I've heard abutters complain, you said there was going to be this amount of units in that building closest to us, and there's more. It is not insignificant, so
Okay, so discuss it amongst the board.
that's the board's determination.
Yeah, so let's discuss it.
Excuse me. Has an updated official set of plans been submitted with the new numbers?
Yeah, the
No.
plans submitted to the building department, and the building permits have been issued based on the construction drawings, and there's a process where the building department sends those plans out to everybody to sign off, including the planning board.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
unit
we
count
have
on the...
not seen them yet. We have not seen the new plans.
The
with
unit
new
counts on the
units in
architectural
there,
drawings
the
that
new
were
counts.
submitted and permitted have the accurate unit numbers on them.
When you say you haven't seen them,
Since we did not get new plans.
we don't submit
Since they
construction
changed.
drawings to the planning board.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what he's asking. Have
We
we seen
submitted
the
to the
plans?
building
original
department.
Plans that were approved state
Plans that
the-
we, so what
Other
happens is
members, so I
we
didn't know if
approve
there was-
those plans here. When you bring the as-built back, if they don't match. So that's why usually
But
if
the
there's gonna be a
as-bills-
change, then
The
you bring
as-bills
it.
aren't gonna... As-bills for your site plan is gonna be as-bills of the site. You're not gonna get as-bills of architecturals, of the inside of the building. You're not
So-
gonna have as-bills of that. We have as-bills...
Any changes, you should come back to the planning board and just say this is, and
So
then we make
if-
a determination if it's major or minor.
We're
And that's what
happy, when we're
saying.
back on May, we're gonna be back for you on the, to give you the landscaping design, because that's gonna be a change. So we know we're coming back for that. We're happy to come back and show you the 3 different buildings and just what we said on just now. One building went from 75 to 78. One building went from
88 to, or 85 to...
85 to 88 to 85, or vice versa, and the other one changed by 6. We're happy to do that. Yeah, well, happy to do that.
Yes,
But,
that's
Is this on the civil site plan?
yeah, we're gonna put it on the civil plan.
Okay.
We'll put it on the civil plan.
There's another lot. Do you folks own another lot
No,
that's
sir.
not included
No.
No, sir.
in this subdivision?
No. No, you're talking about a paper lot that was created at the time we did a subdivision plan? It's all one property.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking at this plan right here. There's Longwood Ave, there's where you're developing right there, but there's a.
We do
there's
not
this
own,
empty
we do
lot.
not own that.
Do you own it?
No.
Do you
He's
know-
talking about the one to the east with the easement.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
you're
the
talking about
prior-
Caruso-
The prior
Caruso's
owner
land.
Oh,
bought a
Caruso.
10-acre parcel and a 3-acre parcel behind it.
Yeah,
They
we don't
only
own that.
sold the 10-acre parcel, the prior owner still owns.
So the
the
3 acre is owned by the
Previous
original
owner.
owner,
Yes, yes.
and that's zoned,
Residential, I think it's R1.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah, that's not our property.
no, I just saw it on a map and
Yeah, it's owned by somebody else.
curiosity.
Sure.
Mr. Riley, did you have something?
I would just recommend to the board, you go ahead and motion that, the change in units is not a significant change based on the applicant's testimony and representations on the record. That I would agree with. And I'll dispense with reading the actual condition that says that you have to submit the construction documents to the board and the DPW and the building inspector. So we need to agree on common language that's required. That's important.
Right,
And
so,
I'm reading from the actual condition in the permit that approved your project.
right.
So
we-
Ms. Meredith is telling you they never had seen
Okay.
the construction documents. If you're willing to come and explain those, that's great. But I do think that's not insignificant.
Okay, so let me just understand, in Saugus, we're still trying to understand, everybody's learning how to do this differently than it was done a few years ago. So,
We're trying to follow the rules.
okay, so, great, we want to follow the rules, we're trying to understand what the rules are. We created the construction drawings. We were told when we filed our application, deliver the construction drawings. We had to deliver these forms where 9 different departments, including the planning board, signs off before the building department will issue the building permit. We give all that to the building department. What the building department does with that, I don't know. Chris, maybe you know. But we as the applicant expect that the building department then distributes the forms to each of the places that the building department wants to sign off before they'll issue the permit. We got the permit.
That
we just-
doesn't always happen.
But what is the applicant supposed to do if the building department doesn't do it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. We give the building department
Well-
the plans and their forms. The building department is not supposed to give us a building permit until you guys sign off. We get the building permit. All right, so everybody signed off, or else we wouldn't have gotten the building permit.
So that's not necessarily accurate. It should be the way it goes, but
But-
not all departments, so I understand what you're saying.
No, I
So we're working
understand what
on
you're
the
saying,
communication
Ms.
between all the
Meredith.
departments. However, if we have plans, if we approve plans that say X amount of units in this building, X amount of units in this building, and then that changes. So one thing that the board hasn't done in the past is that they're supposed to bring as-built back, the approved plan that the planning board approves, that this is what you say you're gonna build, right? Then if something changes along that, you're supposed to come back before the board and file for a change, a modification, and then they say if it's major or minor, whatever, they approve it, you move forward. That way, when you come back with your project, your final project, before you can be issued an occupancy permit, and this is one step that was missed with the past board for several years, before the building department can sign off on that occupancy permit, the as-built, the construction, and the as-built have to come back here. We have to match the approved plan with your final project plan before the building department can give you that occupancy permit. That's a major step that's been missed. And I can assure you that won't happen with this board. So we are trying to, that's why we're such a stickler on if there's gonna be a change, just come back and tell us what the change is. Most likely, we're not gonna have a problem with it unless it's so major that it changes, and it's detrimental to neighbors or whatever. Follow that procedure, so then when you come back and you say, this is what we built, there's no surprises, and we say, sure, we sign right off. But when there's changes, it appears that when there's changes like that, then that people start going, well, what other changes are you? And then it causes more problems. We're trying to streamline things so it's easier and we get to the end at the same time.
So
In addition, that is discussed in the
I
record.
completely understand everything you said, Ms. Meredith, and makes perfect sense to me. And just so, to remind the board, this applicant, this exact project, we came back to the board with a modified plan already from November of 2022, because there was a little
Yeah,
change
the
in
pet spa.
the pet. So
Yeah.
we've already done that procedure
Right, right.
already once.
That's what I'm saying, but we didn't hear anything about unit numbers
Okay,
changing. So that's, we just wanna,
I understand.
when you hear it from somebody else, you start to say, well, if that's changed, what else has changed?
I
We don't like
understand.
surprises.
May I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Going forward, as is the practice almost everywhere else, can you, the applicant, walk the building card around and get the initials from the departments and everyone that's required in the condition? That's the way it's normally done. So then you don't have to worry about whether the building inspector's following the proper protocol. You, the applicant, who's responsible for the condition in your permit, walks around and gets all the proper approvals. Okay? I think
Did
that
you want me
solves
to
it.
read this, or just for my
No,
own
I'm just
knowledge?
for, you know, giving
As,
you a
as,
reference
as
point.
we go
Thank you.
forward, you know, obviously I wasn't, as we go forward, site plan review, I've been in front of 100 cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts the last 40 years. You have a lot of experience, I have a lot of experience. I have never seen site plan review require that the individual building counts on a multi-building, as long as the total number is correct, the interior building count matchup, never seen that required. We give that information to the planning board so they understand what we're contemplating, but the architect hasn't designed the interior of the building at the time of site plan review. This is site plan review. It's designing the site. If I go,
think there's no reason to respond to that. If you're suggesting it's immaterial to abutters, how many units are gonna be next to them in a project that
let me
required planning board approval?
This is awful.
let me ask you something, Mr. Riley. I have a building that's a certain size, a certain height, a certain design. Do you know how many units are in it by looking at the building?
I know that in every project, the density,
To get to
number
this
of
building,
units in the
you're gonna have
project
to
is
go
what the
through all
abutters
this
care about the
But
most.
we are
And what site plan
abiding-
review
Get back here.
regulations
We've abided by the
address
density.
most specifically, so.
The density is 245 units. We have 245
In how many
units.
buildings?
3.
And
We have
are all
3
those buildings
buildings.
in equal distance from the abutters?
All of the
Yeah,
buildings. But
I don't think I need to entertain this, but
I
your
don't
testimony is not credible to me.
okay, so you're telling me that
I
Okay,
just-
all right, so
Madam
we
Chair?
could go back and forth. So, Mr. Riley, just to, I can't make the motion because I'm chairing, so if you wanna just reiterate what you think we should motion and you vote that?
That the redistribution of the units in the project buildings is an insignificant change to the project.
can we recite the exact numbers so that there's no confusion?
Is
Since you were
a
doing it?
significant change or
Why
isn't?
don't we change?
Is
why
it-
don't we
is
just
not
do
a
it now?
significant
Is not,
change.
okay.
Yeah,
They've already built, so why not wait until we do our site plan, then make a motion like that? They're not gonna look for occupancy.
Well, because we already know this now, so he's saying
Right.
just to clarify it on the record.
You
That
can
we're
put
saying
in
that it's
parens,
not significant.
in building 1, which is 78 now, correct?
It's went from 75 to 78, and on the revised plans, we'll now update it. We'll put it on the plans. Building
Comma,
1,
Building 2, which is now 6 less?
Building
So
2, it went
85,
from,
79?
was, correct, it was originally proposed to be 85, it's now 79.
And building 3,
It was originally 85, it's now
now
88.
88.
Exactly.
so in parens and then the rest.
So if that's what the board votes tonight, when we come back, we'll update the plans that we're submitting to you and we'll reflect those new numbers.
Great,
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Rando?
thank you.
No, I'm just to do that. you know, as Mr. Riley says, it's an insignificant change, and we just wanted to see it, but I don't understand the pushback by you. We just wanna see the plans with the change, so that when the abutters come and maybe they have a complaint, we can say, yes, we approved this, we saw this, we approved this. I don't understand where the pushback is on just a set of plans that
I
reflects
don't
a
mean-
change from the original plans.
I
That's all.
understand. I understand.
I'm really confused.
I'm not pushing back. I just, it's the, I get hung up on the law sometimes and the interior design of a building. The particular interior design of a building is not the province of site plan review. The total unit count is. You have to have a total unit count to have traffic impacts and everything else. I understand Mr. Riley's point. You could look at a building, it has all these windows, no one knows how many units are in it. Yeah, it's just an impossible thing to stand in front of a building and know,
I'm
oh,
gonna guess somebody did because it got back to us that
but
the
how
has
could they,
changed.
but they can't know by looking at
I
the
know,
building.
I
The
know.
abutters are looking
All
at a
right, we
building.
could beat this to a dead horse, so we'll move on. I don't wanna
But
cut you
we're
off,
gonna do
but
exactly
it's
what you
in lieu
want.
of
I don't
time. It's
mean to
getting
push
late.
back.
I'll entertain the motion as stated by Mr. Riley. If you wanna make the motion, Phil?
No, I'll
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we have a site plan review on Tuesday at 5:30, and just see where it goes from there. In other words, forget everything else, forget the numbers and all that. I'm looking at that plan right now.
But our motion we're asking them to bring the plans back. So if we wait till we do the site visit
No,
and then they
we're
come
gonna
back.
pull your plans that you have that are signed off the Mylars and go over those. There's so many waivers on this project. I'd like to see if the waivers were really have been applied the way that they were listed. By the planning board.
That's the way.
There's no waivers, it's not a subdivision.
If there's a waiver on the 500-foot driveway by itself.
There's no
There's
waivers.
wait a minute.
Talking about
And the
subdivision
pla- if the
regs. They
planning
don't
board-
apply in this case
Subdivision.
because this is a zoning approval. Subdivision regs don't apply.
It's
in
not a
this case.
subdivision.
There's
What are you talking about? This was a subdivision.
There was a
No, it is
subdivision part of
not.
Free zoning. Oh, sorry.
It's not. This,
There's still a 500-foot limit.
there's
And
no.
you've got an extension, a waiver of another 150 feet, which I really don't see here, because all your street, you don't really have streets, you have driveways.
This is
And you
not a
have barrel
subdivision.
parking. People
There's-
driving on that far building are gonna have to come through parking lots to get to that building.
There's no, correct.
Do you
100%
think that's
correct.
okay?
It's not a
I
subdivision.
mean, it's not gonna change because that's what was approved.
No, but it's
You know,
not a.
I'm just telling you, I don't think it's a great idea.
It's not a subdivision, it's
It's
a
not-
road, it's a driveway.
It's
just
not
like
a
you said.
it's not a subdivision.
Yeah.
It's a multifamily development on
You're
a
building
single lot.
under the regulation that we passed back in what, 2015 at town meeting. You could either go business or you could go mixed use.
Correct.
You're choosing to go mixed use. Okay? So what you're saying is that negates everything else.
No, we're just saying it's not a subdivision. The 500-foot rule doesn't apply because it's not a road, it's a driveway.
That's what we're saying.
But the driveway itself is not a road, is that what you're saying?
It's not a road.
So you've got a waiver on that road to 40 feet when it should have been 50, is that what you're saying?
You're
That's-
confusing
that's-
the subdivision that was filed specifically to free zoning, which is a mutually exclusive, totally separate process, never got executed, never got built. This is just a site plan review. It was a piece of land that has a driveway with 3 buildings on it.
Rick, I think you're wrong.
No,
Yes, I do.
We could, I
I
guess,
find that, I know wrong.
we could articulate it a different way. There is a subdivision plan that was filed to freeze the zoning. The subdivision plan, the road is not built, the subdivision plan will never be built. I stood in front of the planning board and represented that to the planning board. In the approval of the subdivision plan, it says we're going to build the site plan. And if we don't build the site plan, we gotta come back. We didn't build the subdivision, we're not building the
Why
subdivision.
did you get a waiver then on the 500-foot driveway?
Because it was part,
It was
And
to
why did you get
freeze,
a waiver on going from 50 feet down to 40 feet.
Because we needed to get.
You did right here, I have the copies of them.
I'll tell you why. We got the waivers in order to get the subdivision approved to freeze the zoning not to build the subdivision. Under Massachusetts law, you can freeze the zoning with a subdivision plan that you do not build. We did not build the subdivision. We told the planning board, we will not build the subdivision. The sole purpose of the subdivision was a legal freezing of the zoning because of the zoning changes, and we froze them. We did not build the
The
subdivision.
500 foot is not a requirement of a subdivision. It's in our zoning bylaw book.
That's not the
It
case.
talks about the R1, R2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where the 500 feet is.
No, the 500 feet's in the subdivision rules and regulations.
No, it's not, Rick.
Madam
It
Chair,
is.
if
Mr.
we could get
Thompson?
Mr. Riley's, do you have a thought on what Mr. Long is saying?
Motion to find the change in unit count in the individual buildings, and in parens, building 1, as we discussed, building 2, building 3, and that'll be in the minutes and on the record, is found to be insignificant by the board, an insignificant change by the board. That's it.
But as far as what Mr. Long was just saying, do you have there seems to
500
be a
foot
difference of
right of
opinion between the,
Yeah, I know the 500-foot rule is in the subdivision regs, and this is not approved as a subdivision project, but that's what I do know.
So do I have a motion?
are we making, Mr. Long made a motion that wasn't seconded.
He made a motion for
site
site
plan
visit.
review.
We don't need a motion for that. We already all agreed on the site visit. We don't need a motion.
I really do think you need a motion to have the site plan, because it's public and it's,
Okay.
anybody who's,
All right, so Mr. Long makes a motion to have the site plan, to have the site, say your motion. And say it 5
site
times.
visit. And by the way, just to let you know, let me make a comment before we go forward on it. The roadway is the roadway is the roadway, and I'm aware of that. I'm just pointing out what I have actually had from years of experience. And I do believe that that 500 foot is in the, and by the way, if you get on a subdivision, the subdivision has now terminated, right? It was never built. So it expired.
The subdivision was never intended to build.
They
It doesn't
didn't act-
matter, it expired.
It's expired, I agree. It's expired. Still have 8 years of zoning protection.
Wait a
I
minute.
agree.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. That's my motion.
I'm definitely moving your seat next week, next meeting. And make your
You
motion,
afraid of the
please.
tomatoes?
I'm not the one that should be afraid. Make your motion, please.
A motion that we have a site visit rather on Tuesday at 5:30. And what's that date? That's
April 9th.
April 9th.
April 9th.
The chair will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We will be there on April 9th. Do I have any other motions?
To adjourn.
No. I
Oh.
have a motion, can I so move, what Mr. Riley had stated? Is the motion?
Yeah, just for the record, you want to just
Yeah.
reiterate it one more time? Sorry.
That the change in the units of the individual buildings in the project, and then in parens, building 1, building 2, and building 3, is found to be an insignificant change by the board.
The chair will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You in favor?
No, I'm just not voting on it.
You abstaining?
Yes,
Okay.
I need one at least once.
Motion passes 3-1 with 1 abstain.
We'll update, when we submit the plans for May, we'll update the unit count.
Thank you.
So it'll be
Again-
reflected on the next set of plans.
Just,
Thank you.
For the site visit, we'll coordinate that with the contractor. Just make sure that you check in at the construction trailer to get PPE. They'll walk you around the site. I think
Yeah, well, I'll
Mr.
just read the
Salvo's gonna be there.
trailer.
Okay.
And again, if you guys see issues with the site security that we're not aware of, with all those protocols in place, feel free, you can reach out to me direct at any time.
Okay. thank you.
I recommend boots, especially if
And
they.
I'll ask,
Work boots and hard hat?
They have hard hat. I think they have 10
The terrain's a
hard
little
hats.
rugged there, so.
Okay.
Depending on how many, I think they have 10 or 12 extra hard hats, so depending on
I
how
have
many.
my own
Boots for
hard hat.
intruding on the site during.
Yeah, I'd wear, those are that boots, and wear something solid for.
Okay.
and I'll also ask Rick.
No heels?
I missed it.
I'll ask Rick.
Boots for intruding.
What we'll do when we come back in May, because I know we're gonna come back with the landscaping and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, I'll ask Rick right now in front of everybody. Let's do a quick run-through of all the plans, and if there's anything else that we see that we want to bring to the board's attention, that something is different than we thought, we'll present it at the May meeting as well.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, just Mr. Salvo, if you could just state his name and association with the project for the record.
Sorry, Rick Salvo, Engineering Alliance.
It's an informal hearing anyway.
Oh, that's right,
It's not a real hearing.
correct.
Madam Chair,
But,
just
but we'll do that as well.
Yes,
We'll
Mr.
go,
Addy.
we'll scrub the plans and we'll make sure there's nothing else that,
one technical issue. There is a condition, no occupancy permit shall be issued for development until completion of all development infrastructure, including all site driveways, access
Yeah.
ways, parking areas, drainage facilities, and utilities. It's going to be impossible for them to complete all of that on the site before the
Before they
first.
get the occupancy from.
So
first.
it's just the board sort of acknowledging.
we're gonna, with that, thank you, Mr. Riley. That's
Yeah.
one of the things we're gonna present in May. Because we have the phasing plans that were presented to the building department and it's all laid out. So, again, I know we're going back in time when things were done differently. We're trying to do them differently now. Sort of phasing wasn't sort of focused on by the planning board historically. Now, if you're doing a project that's multi-building, I'm sure the planning board's gonna say, well, what are you building first and second and third, and we'll have phasing plans. So we will, when we present the May plans, we'll show you the phasing plan for one and the phasing plan for that we've been operating under with the building department. We'll get that to you too,
Fire department as well.
and the fire department. So that will, does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, for that first person that walks in their unit, they need to have complete infrastructure all the way from their unit and building out.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's
That's all
all,
we're talking about.
no, I know, but it's all shown, that's what my point is, it's shown on phasing plans
That makes
already. We're
perfect
gonna
sense.
give those phasing plans to the planning board, so that you know what's going on.
And FD also looks for the turning radius and the access to the building, so we show all that, and then
Great.
we've been in contact with those folks.
It's to respond to your comment. We'll bring it to you and we'll show it to you all so you can see it all.
That's right. Great, thank you,
We'll do that at May.
thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys on Tuesday.
When is the May meeting, do you know?
May
May
2nd,
2nd.
I think, May, that first.
May 1st is a Wednesday, so it's May 2nd.
Yeah, May 2nd.
Okay.
May 2nd is our next meeting.
Oh, maybe, okay.
Madam Chair, make a motion to adjourn.
I will second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.